Old Testament reading is Exodus chapter 20, beginning with the first verse. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself a graven image. You shall not bow down to them or serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and the fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your manservant or your maidservant, or your cattle, or the sojourner who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land which the Lord your God gives you. You shall not kill, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant, or his maidservant, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. Now when all the people perceived the thunderings and the lightnings and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain smoking, the people were afraid and trembled. And Moses said to the people, Do not fear, for God has come to prove you, and that the fear of him may be before your eyes, that you may not sin. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Well, the Ten Commandments, it's yet one more example of something that is beautiful and noble and holy, and we ruin it, right? Ten Commandments are so politicized, they're made into a weapon to judge other people. That's not the way Israel viewed these commandments. Psalm 19, for instance, says, God's law revives the soul. God's law rejoices the heart. God's laws are more desirable than gold. God's laws are sweeter than honey. Or another way to think about this is well expressed in a novel that I'm fond of by Zora Neale Hurston. It's called Moses, Man of the Mountain. And in this book, she imagines the moment when Moses has received the commandments and he's about to come down to the people. And I think she captures the spirit of it in just such a lovely way. Moses lifted the freshly chiseled tablets of stone in his hands and gazed down the mountain to where Israel waited in the valley. He knew a great exultation. Now men could be free because they could govern themselves. They had something of the essence of divinity. They had the chart and compass of behavior. They need not stumble into blind ways and injure themselves. This was bigger than Israel. It comprehended the whole world. Israel could be a heaven for all men forever by these sacred stones. With flakes of light still clinging to his face, Moses turned down the mountain with the tablets of testimony in his hands. He heard nothing earthly nor sensed anything about him until he descended to where Joshua waited for him. With his eyes turned inward, he sat down on a stone opposite Joshua to rest and said, Joshua, I have laws. Israel is going to know peace and justice. I love that. I have laws. Israel is going to know peace and justice. I want to explore this in light of something that I haven't had a chance to talk to you about yet, and that is that 2 weeks ago, my daughter Sarah, my older daughter, was married, and it was just something. It was amazing, and it was cool, and she was, says, Sarah, this is interesting. I'm going to do a workshop in a couple of weeks on Christian marriage. And her getting married, and she's trying to have a robustly, deliberately Christian marriage, raises some questions about, what is Christian marriage? Is it this kind of over-the-top party that we're accustomed to seeing, or is it something else? Sarah tried to really have a Christian marriage. So a lot of it was non-traditional, and one of the things that was non-traditional is she called me a couple of months before the wedding, and she said, Dad, you know how at the reception they have a first dance? And I said, yes. She said, I don't want to do that. And I said, thank God. She said, but instead, what I want to do, instead of a first dance, is I want to do a first song. Now, Sarah and I, over the years, have made music together, and so it was cool. So I said, well, honey, what do you want to sing? And she said, I want to sing that song that we did when I was 4 years old in the talent show. And Sarah was 4. She entered a talent show, and I took her and I perched her on top of the piano. We did not do this at the wedding reception. But we stood up there, and this is the song that we did together. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Now, this nearly undid me emotionally, as you can imagine. And people were thinking it was so perfect, and I thought, I bet most people were hearing that in terms of, the dreams that you dream really come true. She dreamed of getting married, and here it is. But I don't think that's kind of what she had in mind. This dreaming business, like, what do we dream, and why do we dream what we dream? At the wedding, there was another dream that came into play. This is so interesting. People asked me if I officiated at my daughter's wedding. Are you kidding me? I could barely function as the dad, and I'm her dad, not her pastor. So the guy who officiated is named Kelly Carpenter. He's Sarah's husband's pastor, longtime friend of mine. And at the wedding, he told that after they asked him to marry him, he had a dream about their wedding. I want to read you some of his dream. This is amazing. He said, in the dream, Sarah's mother was wearing a dress of white feathers, and it appeared she might take flight. The procession included 4 ponies, blue and purple. 2 old clergymen in black robes began the service. One said, how can we do this? Join these 2, a Methodist princess and a real certifiable sinner? And if you knew Colin, this is really funny. As the old clergymen began their prayers, wasps flew around the sanctuary and stung the ponies. Silly. It was a great moment. Why do we dream what we dream? Right? We tend to think we always going to dream what I dream and hope it comes true. Or we think maybe God helps my dreams come true. Sounds like a reasonable kind of thing, but I wonder about it differently. I wonder if God has dreams for us. And can we dream God's dreams? I wonder about these 10 commandments. I wonder if instead of thinking them as, here's things you better go do, and if you don't, you're in trouble. Right? Is that instead these 10 commandments reveal to us God's dream for us as people. God's dream for us as individuals, God's dream for us as a people. See, this dream of the commandments is really interesting. I'm also preparing a class on Martin Luther. You know, we're coming upon the 500th anniversary of him nailing the 95 Theses to the Wittenberg door, sparked the Reformation and so on. And one of the things that Martin Luther does when he thinks about the 10 commandments is he doesn't treat them as, you better go do this. What he does with the commandments is he says, inside each commandment there is tucked mercy. That's interesting, isn't it? Like you think you need mercy if you blow the commandments. But Luther says there's a little mercy hidden inside each commandment. For instance, thou shalt not covet. The mercy is you don't have to covet. Like, you're okay. You don't need what the other person has that you think you want. Or you shall have no gods before me. And the mercy in it is you don't need any other gods. The true God is enough, right? So I've been trying to think about the mercy hidden in each of these commandments and how this might express God's dream for us. And I've tried to renew those commandments and think about what it might mean for us today. So let me just run through a few, not all 10 of them, and kind of think about God's dream. For instance, the 10 commandments say, you shall not take the Lord's name in vain. When I was a little boy, I thought that meant don't cuss. Now let me say to you, don't cuss. But that's not what the 10 commandments say. The 10 commandments say don't take the Lord's name in vain. And I think what that is, it's when you invoke God's name and attach it to something that's not of God. And we hear this all the time, don't we? Thankfully, we don't hear it from politicians like we did years ago, but you still hear it all over the place. Somebody says, oh, God, and they attach it to something that has nothing to do with God. I dream of a world where God's name is used sparingly and humbly, and it's only attached to what is noble, to what is holy, and to what is good for people. The Ten Commandments say, thou shalt not commit adultery. And if you know people who've been through this, it's such an achingly painful, gruesome thing. We dream of a world where that never happens. To get to a world where that never happens, we need to go to what Jesus said. Jesus said, you've heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery, but I say that if you've harbored lust in your heart, you're guilty of adultery. This is tough because like the whole engine of our media culture is driven by lust, advertising, TV, it's just everywhere. And it plays out funny. It's just so damaging to people. And I think especially to women, although it's damaging to men as well. But I was thinking about it. Sarah was blogging as she was preparing for a wedding about various things. One of the things she talked about was that she felt this pressure. People keep asking her about how are you fitting into your wedding dress? Like, be sure you exercise, you don't gain 3 extra pounds, because then you won't look so good in your dress. Like, nobody was coming to Colin saying, hey, dude, how are you going to look in your wedding suit? Right? What is that for women, that they're valued by the curve of their body instead of something else? And then lust. What is lust? Lust is when you treat another person as an object. And that gets really ugly when it becomes domestic violence, right? We're looking at domestic violence this month. We have this fashion show that's coming up. It's a chance for you to go to something, October 15th. Get a ticket, go. It's a way of saying we in the church don't tolerate it. You think domestic violence isn't a problem? I mentioned this in a sermon 2 weeks ago. The next day I got 5 phone calls from women saying, my husband is very cruel to me. How many didn't I hear from? I dream of a world where this kind of thing never happens, where men, young men, know how to treat women. The Ten Commandments say, you shall have no gods before me. When Moses said that to the Israelites, this would have been interesting. They would have thought, oh, no golden bulls, right? Because they had just come from Egypt, and the false gods in Egypt were golden bulls. Well, if you go to New York City, isn't this interesting? And you go to Wall Street, there's a statue there of a golden bull. And every time you're there, you get the photo op with the golden bull. I wonder who the sculptor was. I meant to research this, and then I figured it out. When the sculptor was fashioning that golden bull, did he pause and think, whether it's Jewish or Christian, doesn't matter. Like, the Bible said no golden bulls, and here I'm making one. And it's not just a funny thing, that really is our God, if we're honest with ourselves. I mean, your God is what drives you. Your God is what motivates you. Your God is what keeps you up at night. Your God is what you value other people for. It really is money. We've fallen after it, wish we had more of it. Think if we had more of it, all our problems would be solved. We also have this thing, I'll just get this in while I'm on it. We're at that time of year, happens every year. It's so boring. When I retire from ministry, this is what I will not miss, and it's this. We start out the year pretty well financially, and then we'll sag through the summer, and then at the end of the year, whoa, we catch up. And every year it gets a little deeper, and then we catch up. This is just aging me prematurely. And we meet, and we try to say, what are we going to do about this? What are we going to do? I don't think we're going to get it fixed until we realize that money is not our God, but our money is for God. If we had that, we wouldn't be doing this, and I wouldn't be prematurely aging. The Ten Commandments say you shall observe the Sabbath day. I dream of a world where we take one day a week and we just disconnect. We turn off the gadgets and we really look at each other. We really listen to each other. We rest. The Ten Commandments say, thou shalt not steal. You probably don't go rob people. But John Wesley, the founder of Methodism, he said this pretty interesting thing. He says, if you don't have overabundant sacrificial charity for the poor, you're guilty of theft. Ouch. Here's some harder ones I want to talk about. Stay with me on this. Don't get mad at me. The Ten Commandments say you shall not have any graven images. Now, we live in a society that's just, we're dominated by images. It's everything from the Nike swoosh, all this stuff. But the images have really taken a pernicious turn recently, right? Because what we see in the United States of America increasingly, let's just pick one, we have the swastika, right? You have people say, we're going to come to Charlotte. They're not coming to Charlotte. They were in Charlotte, so they've been other places. You have the swastika. You have Nazis in America. This is interesting. When the Nazis, the neo-Nazis, were in Charlottesville, a friend of mine posted something on Facebook that I wished I'd thought of first. He said this. He said, my father went to war in Europe in World War II to defeat the Nazis. And then here at home, he has to look at the news and see the swastika and that they're Nazis in America. And some even say, oh, they're fine people. If you go to Germany and you raise a swastika, they put you in jail. In Germany, they don't have statues to Rommel or Goering or Hitler. I was in Berlin a few years ago. I tried to find Hitler's birthplace. You can't find it. They don't want you to know where it is. They won't have that. I dream of a world where we don't allow evil symbols to intimidate other people. The Ten Commandments say, thou shalt not kill. Jesus adds this thing. Jesus said, well, you've heard it say, thou shalt not kill, but I say to you, if you harbor anger in your heart, you're guilty of murder. I dream of a world that's very different from the one that we're in right now, where there's just so much anger, so much rancor. Everybody's mad. Everybody's in a bad mood because they voted for the wrong people, and they support the wrong power. Everybody's just mad. Everybody's just mad. I dream of a world where we're not angry, we're not killing one another with our thoughts. I dream of a world where hate isn't something that we rush to protect politically. We say we won't have hate where we are. We're not going to have that. And so this is actually interesting as well. The Ten Commandments say, thou shalt not kill. And I don't think that means just for individuals like Bob, don't kill anybody. Susan, don't kill anybody. I think it does mean that, but I think it also means that, see, what Moses is doing with the commandments, what God has in mind is I want to have a nation where killing isn't a thing. We live in a nation where killing is a huge thing. And it's really troubling. You know what troubles me the most about Las Vegas? If I rewind in my mind and go back to Columbine or Sandy Hook, when those mass murders happened, I was shriven. I couldn't sleep. It was horrible. By Las Vegas, I'm just kind of numb to it. I regret that, but there are just so many. And each time, you know what happens? I blogged about this the other day, and I got in trouble with some people, but I'll stand by it all day long. It is a blog that I'd written a year ago after one other mass murder. It's hard to remember which one. But after Las Vegas, I reissued it, and what it said is it's time to end our prayers, right? So what happens when there's a mass murder? You hear this thing, I wish I had a nickel for every time I heard this. People say, our thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Las Vegas. Well, that's fine. Think about the people of Las Vegas. Pray for the people of Las Vegas. But our thoughts and prayers go out to the people of Las Vegas. I think God in heaven looks down and says, can't you do better than that? We keep putting up with these things, and we keep having thoughts and prayers, and God says, do something. Do something. I dream of a world where we don't just have thoughts and prayers, but I dream of a world where we've actually changed things. It's going to take a long time. It's not going to be easy, and there's no one fix to it, right? You can't. Some people say, oh, gun control. We just have gun control. That won't get it done. But I do dream of a world where there's a different equation around guns. The way guns are in America, I don't think God looks down and is pleased. I'm sorry. That just can't be the case. We need other kinds of changes. I've dreamed of a world where, think about this, if all the Christians in America agreed together that you're in a movie and somebody pulls out a gun and shoots somebody, you walk out of the theater. Or you're watching TV and somebody pulls out a gun and they shoot somebody, you turn the TV off. They would not put this on the air. But we have a taste for it, don't we? I dream of a world where we don't have a taste. I dream of a world where there's not so much anger, and then sometimes it spills over in somebody who they can't control that anger, and they do something horrific. And I think that's related to mental health. You know, over recent decades, we've gradually dismantled mental health care in our country. We've attached huge stigma to it. We're going to talk about this in our church in the spring. I dream of a world where we do something about mental health, and we actually care for people, help people that are troubled, instead of making them hide or actually. I dream of a very different world. The problem that happens with us is we may hear God's dream. I may hear God's dream from my life, and I think I'm going to get around to that one day. Or we think about God's dream for our country, and we go, well, it's not convenient now, or now's not the time to talk about it, or maybe someday, I don't know. But you just have to ask the question, like, when? Right? Like, when are you going to embrace God's dream for you? When are we going to embrace God's dream for us as a people? When are we going to understand that these commandments are God's dream for us, and the purpose of the dream is so that we can be truly free?
If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place in time again. If not now, tell me when. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. I see sorrow and trouble in this land. Although there will be struggle, we'll make the change we can. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place in time again. If not now, tell me when. I may never see the promised land. I may never see the promised land. And yet we'll make the journey. We'll take it hand in hand. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place in time again. If not now, tell me when. We'll work until it's done. Every daughter, every son, every soul that ever longed for something better, something brighter. And it will take a change of heart for this to mend. Yes, it will take a change of heart for this to mend. But miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when. We may never see this moment or place in time again. If not now, tell me when. And miracles do happen every shining now and then. If not now, tell me when. If not now, tell me when.
Hey, thank you for watching, and we hope you got something out of that. If you have any feedback for us, any response that was helpful to you, we would love to hear that. Please let us know. And everything that we put out is free, and we want it to be that way, but if you're able and feel led to support the mission of our church or the cost of providing this online content, here's how to do so.